Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it is time for episode 6 of the Media Assault 1970s Drive-In Spectacular, and this entry is probably one of the most anticipated entries in the series, where I'm going to be reviewing The Manitou from 1978. And this is a film that was directed by William Girdler, who directed Day of the Animals, which was actually episode 1 of the Drive-In Spectacular. So if you're interested in that, check that video out if you haven't done so already. And I had mentioned in that particular video that William Girdler was kind of a B-movie master in the 1970s, bringing audiences movies like Grizzly, which was a Jaws ripoff featuring a grizzly bear. He also did Abby, a movie that was so similar to The Exorcist that he was actually sued. He did Day of the Animals, and he's also known for The Manitou. The Manitou was actually his last film. I had mentioned in my Day of the Animals review that William Girdler did not get to continue his B-movie mastery into the 80s because he passed away. And I found out that it was actually a helicopter crash in the Philippines while he was scouting locations for his next movie is the reason he passed away. He was only 30 when he died, so he left a lot of interesting B-movie gems in a very short period of time. But anyway, we're talking about The Manitou, his most successful movie as far as I'm aware. This was the movie that he thought was going to bring him a lot of acclaim, and in some instances it did, because it is one of the more well-known movies of the 70s in the B-movie category anyway. This was based on a 1975 novel by Graham Masterton, and I have not read that novel, but I did get to see some of the prose, if for lack of a better word, from the novel that was actually on the author's website. And I can say that a lot of this movie's charm can be directly attributed to the novel, which seems to be just as cheesy as the movie turned out to be. So apparently William Girdler was faithful to the source material in terms of cheesiness. There are some liberties taken with the actual concept. And that concept is that a woman discovers a lump on the back of her neck, and over the course of a few days it grows to the size of a baseball. So she decides she's going to consult a doctor. They look at it, they can't figure out what it is, but they decide that they want to operate to get rid of it. So the woman, her name is Karen Tandy, and she's played by Susan Strasberg. She's scheduled to have surgery the next day, so she goes and visits her ex-boyfriend, who is played by Tony Curtis. His name is Harry. And Harry makes his living as sort of a tarot card reader, psychic. He's basically a con artist, and he'd be the first person to admit that as long as you're not one of his paying customers. And they spend the day together, and Karen tells Harry that she's really nervous about this surgery, and he assures her that everything's going to be fine. And in the middle of the night, while they're lying in bed next to each other, she starts saying something in a weird language. And through these incredible leaps of logic and just bad writing, for lack of a better way to describe it, because of this uttering of these strange words in the middle of the night, Harry comes to the conclusion that the lump on her neck is the fetus of a medicine man from 400 years ago that is being reborn into the present day. And the only way to combat this medicine man is to find a present day medicine man to basically do Native American magic, and that'll take care of the problem, at least in theory. And this leads to a showdown in the hospital that can only be described as epically bad. This movie is just loaded with cheesy, schlocky moments. the whole point of my doing this drive-in spectacular was to showcase movies that have these type of moments. And with the Manitou, with this movie right here, I have hit the mother lode. This is a movie that I saw probably about, 30 years ago, the first time I saw it. And I thought it was kind of cool back then, but I was only 12. Seeing it again now for the first time in such a long period of time, it really just is mind-boggling how much stuff is really, really bad in this movie. So I'm going to count down some of these and share them with you. First of all, there's the premise, which is a fetus growing in someone's neck. The actual backstory about the demon and this medicine man called, I'm going to mangle this name, Misquamacus is the name of this ancient medicine man. The premise is at once cool and cheesy. The Native American magic and some of the dramatic things involving the demon are pretty sweet, but the handling leaves a lot to be desired. There's a scene where one of Harry's tarot card reading customers throws herself down a flight of stairs, and she's obviously a man in a dress. It's just really terrible. Burgess Meredith is in this film for about 5 minutes, and his 5-minute appearance is truly one of the highlights of the film. He sort of mumbles and mutters his way through this explanation of Native American magic, and in that 5 minutes he transforms from a complete skeptic to a believer, and I'm not really sure where in that 5 minutes it happens. It's very bizarre, and he looks just completely at home in his 70s getup. There is a scene where Tony Curtis unwinds after a day of ripping people off, reading their fortunes on tarot cards, and the unwinding consists of him turning on this terrible disco music on his reel-to-reel tape recorder, and then unwinding with a glass of beer poured in a wine glass. The way he's dressed, the way he's dancing, the music, it's just complete camp at its best. There's another scene where Tony Curtis takes on Misquamacus with a typewriter, and he wins, at least momentarily. That is just classic. The special effects in this movie, universally, except for maybe 2 scenes, are universally terrible. There is a scene in this movie, there's a whole sequence that takes place on this hospital floor that is supposed to have been turned into this sort of frozen wasteland. And what looks like paper bags that have been painted white are propped up against the wall in an attempt to make ice formations. They just look really bad. And of note, Felix Silla, who some of you may know as Tweaky from the Buck Rogers TV series, actually plays the Bourne version of Misquamacus. And that's just a piece of trivia. There's nothing inherently cheesy about Felix Silla being in the movie, but it's just a nice piece of trivia. The one sequence that I thought was kind of cool and kind of a cool idea, there's a seance scene, and Misquamacus makes his first appearance in the movie, and the way he is introduced is really kind of cool and kind of inventive, and I thought it was kind of neat. And there's also another scene where Misquamacus animates the body of a dead hospital worker, and that actually pays off. That's a little bit chilling and kind of creepy with the noises that the Indian is making. It's very, very cool. Really, I just have to sum this movie up, though, as this is the perfect drive-in movie. Of all the movies I've reviewed so far, and the 2 that I have left to review, I doubt anything will or could top this for the type of movie that I was looking for to showcase for you guys. This is a movie that you would most certainly want to watch with a group of friends and several maybe more than several beers. and you will have a great time watching this. It's just a complete cheese fest. So I'm giving the Manitou a 10 out of 10 for the 1970s Drive-In Spectacular. I highly recommend that you see this. There's the front of it, and here is the back. So that is the Manitou, and I'm glad to review that for you. Thanks again for watching, everybody. As always, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't checked out the previous 5 episodes of the Drive-In Spectacular, please do so. You can also find some gems there. 2 more reviews to follow this one. I've got The Car coming up next, and then The Dark. So stay tuned for those. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take it easy.